Holly Swenson is on here. She is the author of Stop, Drop, Grow, and Glow for forming deeper and more joyful connections with yourself and your children. Holly, that's a heck of a title. It was giving me a little bit of a tongue tie there, but I got through it. And we're going to put that in the description box also. But thanks for coming on. Greatly appreciate your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
And people that want to find more about Holly, I hope they go to it's live, Live, your, and then glow dot Live. Again, it's dot live. So we hope people go to the website and you can get the book on Amazon and wherever your books sold, wherever books rather are sold in general. Books a Million, Barnes and Nobles, the list goes on and on. We're not going to go through all that song and dance, but we will move into the interview, Holly. So you are a nurse and many other things. I just want you to tell the audience a little bit more about yourself as we start the interview today.
Absolutely. So, I'm an author on the rise. Writing this book was a way, for me to really feel like I could be of service to parents everywhere. And it's been a really meaningful process for me. But I'm formally trained as a nurse. I'm still actively licensed, but not actively practicing. I'm the mother of 4 sons who bring me so much joy, and a wellness blogger. I wear a lot of different hats, but right now I'm really focusing on promoting wellness, more intentional living, and more joy for parents, for grandparents. It's really where my focus is at currently.
So let's jump into this, right in that deep end of the pool, because there's a lot to get to, and obviously not enough time to get through the whole book in general. But obviously, writing this book, it is extremely important. There is a lot of issues in parenting going on right now. We're seeing a mental health crisis, not just with young kids, but parents in general. It seems like social media has really made us be, go, go, go all the time. We're always on our phones. People don't even look up at other people anymore. They're always looking down at the phone. So, as a person that is a parent, a person that is raising young men, how do you feel like this is affecting society today, where there is obviously, like I stated, that mental health crisis, and we are in a go, go, go society. There's no stopping and just relaxing and enjoying nature and society in general.
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and it's an important question. And I think it comes down to really, you have to carve out that time in your life, for yourself and for your kids if that's important to you, because I do think mental health is a real concern. And, I think technology is here to stay. And so it really comes down to learning how to strike the balance with how we're interacting on a daily basis, and so it's, teaching your kids boundaries. How do you make time for the technology and for being engaged and having that social, online presence? But then how do you also, teach them, put your phone away for meal times, put it away at bedtime, put it, you have to teach them. And a lot of that comes from really solid role modeling. Your kids are watching you. So if you're on your phone at dinner, if you're, going to bed with your phone, if you're doing all of these things, your kids are sponges, and they're really, they're taking it all in. And so if you want those things in your life, you have to make time for them, and you have to be intentional with how you're choosing to live.
So, Holly, what would you say to people that are listening that are, in their 20s or 30s, maybe even in their early 40s? They want to have kids. Maybe they haven't done it yet. Maybe they want to adopt. Who knows? What would you tell those young people that do want to be parents down the road as far as what makes a good parent?
Hmm. Well, I think, that's it's a
I know
great
that's
question.
kind of a tough question, but
Yeah,
we'll throw it
I
at
mean,
you.
I think what I've really learned from being a parent myself is that it's a lived experience, meaning you can read a lot of books about what parenting is and what it's not, but until you're living it, you really don't quite understand the full depth of what being a parent means. With that said, though, I think, I really believe in intentional living and doing work on yourself. Potentially before you choose to have kids, if you haven't had them yet. So if you have areas in your life that you want to strengthen, if there are things, that you want to improve upon, try to do them before you have children. but if you already have children and there are things that you still areas in your life that you feel like are taking away from your ability to show up in the now and be present for your kids, make time to mend those so that you can start parenting with more wholeness, if that makes sense. Because I believe that when you're distracted or when you're living in the past or you're doing these things that are taking away from your ability to be in the now, you're just not showing up in the same way. And so I think it matters to do some of that work on yourself and have self-awareness so that when you step into parenting, you're doing it in a way that you want to be doing it, if that makes,
Yeah.
if that's clear.
I do want to continue on that question, Holly, with this, because, as we stated, a lot of people are, stuck on their phones, the mental health crisis. There's an issue with sleep and people getting overwhelmed very easily now. We see road rage is sky high right now. It's really out of control what's going on in our society in general. What would you tell people as far as making sure that they don't get overwhelmed? Is it meditation? Is it vacations? What is it? Or maybe it's all the above.
Yeah, both of those would be fantastic additions to your life. For me personally, I do practice meditation on a daily basis because I found, especially as a parent, I take that time. For me, I do it first thing in the morning before my family gets up because it helps me to center my energy and show up in a way that I want to be showing up for my kids. But it can be breathing. If you're stuck in traffic and you're driving with a bunch of crazy, you got a lot of stuff, crazy things going on the road, remember to breathe before you're reacting. I always say that that's an important part of, respond. You want to be responding instead of reacting. And so, there is a lot of power in breath and a lot of people forget to breathe. And so breathing is a great way to reset your energy, your frustration, and help you just to kind of take a chill pill instead of going into this like reactive state.
Holly Swenson, again, she is the author of Stop, Drop, Grow, and Glow. Very nice title. Of forming deeper and more joyful connections with yourself and your children. Again, live excuse me. I apologize for that. We will restate that again. Liveyourglow.live. Did I got that right?
You nailed it. Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I'm saying and fumbling and stumbling with all these words, but we'll move forward with that. Actually, we'll stick. I was going to edit. Let me edit that out actually, just so we can get it correct when we do put this live. So I'm just going to rephrase that and go again. Holly Swenson, again, she is the author of Stop, Drop, Grow, and Glow, forming deeper and more joyful connections with yourself and your children. Again, liveyourglow.live, liveyourglow.live for more information on the book and everything that Holly's doing in general. Let's kick this around because obviously parenting has changed. Our economy has changed over so many years, and that's just not now. It changes every so often, 10, 5 years maybe. It's always changing. But now with inflation sky high, everything from gas prices to food, to house insurance, to car insurance, housing in general has went sky high. It's going to be tough to be a parent right now. And I hear a lot of people that are younger than me, but are also in my age bracket of their early 30s that are saying they're not sure if they want to have kids. And it's not so much that they're against having kids, Holly. It's more that they're worried about the finances of having a kid because it's very expensive, as you know, having 4 boys to have a kid. What would you tell people, again, that want to have a kid, but they're very worried about their financial situation, especially during this tough economy in general?
Yeah, I think that people are pausing more to consider what, whether having children is, a good option or not. I mean, children are amazing, and I think that they add so much richness to your life, but having children isn't for everybody. And so I think if you are unsure or you're on the fence, I mean, it's having kids is it's a huge commitment, one, that lasts for at least 18 years under your roof, but then, forever. And so you want to be sure that when you're stepping into the role of becoming a parent, that you're really committed to what that means. And it does mean that there's financial sacrifice and, and time sacrifice. I mean, there's a lot that you put into raising the next generation. And I think that we are experiencing times that are unprecedented in a lot of ways. But I think that if having children is something that is meaningful to you and something that you want to do, I can't tell you how much it's changed my life for the better. And so I think a lot of people, even though there are sacrifices you make, it is a worthwhile journey if that's where you want to go. But you should be clear, and you should be certain that that's what you really want, because there's a lot tied to that decision.
So how should men and women that want to have kids then start that process to talk about this?
Hmm. Well, that's a great question. I think having, good dialogue is a great first step. And I think, there's not a lot of education that goes into child rearing. I think, I talk about in my book how, most people go to college for at least 4 years to be proficient in a given trade. But with parenting, there's really very little. And so I love the idea of talking with your significant other about what raising children means and looks like, to the other person, because you want to be on the same page as much as possible, so that you can have a healthy home dynamic, and so that you both feel fulfilled with the decisions you're making as a couple. So having great dialogue, being on the same page as much as possible, and really, I also talk about the importance of continuing to dream as a parent. And so just because you have children doesn't mean you can't keep dreaming. And so I think nurturing one another to keep growing as individuals is really important once you've started having children, not putting everything that you are interested in on the back burner. Because I think if you can continue to not only nurture your next generation, nurture your child, but then as you're nurturing yourself and your significant other on the journey of being a parent, you're all going to be thriving in a way that's a lot more healthy.
So a lot of those questions that I did just discuss with Holly were a lot of the audience questions. We still do have a few left, so we will get those in, hopefully, if we have enough time. I do want to just get a little deeper into the book, Holly, and talk about the framework of the book, because I've listened, as I stated before we even started recording, a couple of interviews that you've done in the past, and you do talk about that framework. If you could go a little deeper, so we do have some more knowledge about that.
Absolutely. So my framework is in my title: Stop, Drop, Grow, and Glow. And I wanted this to be something that was easily, relatable, and something that you can remember. Being a parent, there's a lot of things that you have to keep track of. And so this was something I wanted to be as simple as possible. And so we start at stop, and stop is really learning how to, assess where you are to date, as a parent, but also as an individual. And so we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but I think, taking some time to do some internal gazing on what's going well in your life, and maybe what might not be going well if you have any struggles that you're facing, and doing some reflection on what that looks like and feels like to you as a person. And I want to drive home the importance of, what does this look like as a parent, but also what does it look like as an individual? You can't lose your individuality once you become a parent. I believe you have to nurture both. And so that's the first stop. The second one is drop, and drop is learning how to drop any drama, trauma, personal past lived experiences that are keeping you from showing up in the now. Because I believe that when you are distracted, or when you're, living in the past, or maybe you're projecting too far into the future, you're really robbing yourself of the opportunity to show up right now, for yourself, for your significant other, for your family. And so I think it's important to touch base with those parts of you that sometimes kind of get shoved to the, put in the closet or whatever, so to speak. So that's the second part of my framework. The third part is grow, and grow is really learning to lean on habits that are going to help you continue to grow as an individual. So it could be mindfulness. It can be really prioritizing sleep, both for yourself and for your family, learning more about your hormonal system, your diet, exercise. I also talk about exercise. There's a lot of literature out there about exercise and the importance of it. I really have found, as a parent, there needs to be a match of how much you're doing at home to what you're expending, in the gym or wherever you like to, make space for exercise in your life. Because I think, when you're, if you're asked a lot of at home, you need to have an appropriate outlet for that energy so that it can be directed in a healthy way. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So that it's, if you have a more mellow home life, maybe you need a more mellow, workout. And then I also talk about the importance of really learning from your children. We teach our children a lot as parents, but I also want to open the door for you to be curious about what you can learn from your children. And, for me as a parent, I have learned so much from my boys. They've helped me really learn, and look deeper at who I am as a person. And I really want to, give a shout out to our kids and make sure that maybe you tell your son or daughter, thank you for what they're teaching you.
Yes.
And then finally, glow is really, there's different elements to this section, but I talk about the importance of self-care. And I think that a lot of times self-care is thought of as selfish, and we aren't very good at making time to tend to ourselves and our own hearts. And what I've learned is that you have to make time for yourself to properly care for other people in your life. It'll make you a better human being. And, I also talk about reminders. Reminders for me are, might be a quote on your fridge. It might be a piece of art in your home. Putting for me, putting a bracelet on that reminds me of my intention, my wellness, and my joy for that day. So that when I see those things, it helps me recenter. Like if I'm, getting, having a day where I'm feeling frazzled or, I've got a million things going on, it helps me recenter how I want to be showing up. And, so that is kind of just a quick touchstone on each section. But there's so much more to it that I just, obviously can't get to it all, but that gives you at least a flavor of what's within my book.
Got about 4 questions left. I want to just hit on what you stated about, obviously raising your kids, and, we keep going back to the technology issue. Obviously, social media is playing a big part in our society in general, but also in parenting. I mean, we've seen some good things as the internet, has progressed, but we've also saw a lot of bad things. I see some really crazy things on social media where there was some kind of new fad that came out where parents were cracking eggs on their kids' heads. I don't know. It's kind of sick to me. That's kind of almost child abuse at some point. But regardless of that, we see a lot of weird, sick things on social media. You're raising 4 boys right now. Tell the audience about that, about raising 4 boys in this time where there's all kinds of weird things on social media. There's all these weird things going on in the schools and in society in general. We don't have to get into all of them, but we do have to be honest that there is some really strange, weird things going on in our society, and especially online.
Yeah, it is an interesting time to, I think, navigate as a parent. And I think it's important to keep a pulse on what your kids are doing online to the best of your ability. I will say that, children have become very smart with how to navigate, social media and these different things that, I mean, their ability to navigate is outdoing most parents, in terms of like, they're so adept at this has been part of their upbringing. So they're very good at navigating computers, phones, all of these things. And I think it's an interesting time. The Surgeon General issued a, kind of a warning of sorts in May of this year, of, potential harm for some of, with social media and some of these impacts it's having on our children. And I believe in that report, if I'm remembering correctly, that, ages 13 to 17, 95% of those kids are engaged in social media. And a third of those kids reported using social media almost constantly. And so when you think of those numbers, I mean, those are pretty staggering numbers. Depending on what they're engaging in, it can have really serious impacts on their mental health, on their, how they're relating to others. Go ahead. You have a question?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to interject, Holly, because that's what goes into what's going on social media. What are they really doing it? Are they doing it for an educational purpose? Probably not. Are they
Mhm.
doing it probably maybe to talk to their friends? Maybe so. Are they doing it to talk to somebody maybe they don't know? That's the problem. And we see, especially you're raising young boys, I see this with my friends, and even when I was in school, as far as college, the sexualization on some of the social media sites, on society in general, is really staggering what's going on right now. And it's anywhere from pornography to sex trafficking going on. And they sucker a lot of these young kids. Again, their minds are not developed fully yet. So they're suckering these kids into all kinds of weird stuff that is going to lead to depression, anxiety, and the list goes on and on for all those medical issues that go on due to these crazy things that are put into our young kids' minds. So I don't know if you have something that you want to speak to the audience about with that, but I personally see that's a huge problem for men with all this sexualization. Not that it's not a problem for girls either, but for young men, it's a big problem because, and I hear this from people. I've talked to therapists about this that I'm friendly with, and they tell me, they have young men coming into their office and they think pornography is how you're supposed to make love to a woman. We both know that that's incorrect.
Yeah.
That's like rape. But anyways, I digress. I don't want to go too deep into that, but I do think that's a huge problem. And for a woman like you that's raising young men, it's got to have you thinking sometimes about some of these issues that are going on.
Well, and I think having good dialogue with your kids and being an open door for them so that when they are meeting some of this stuff online, they're probably not going to share everything with you because that's an age, that they're entering where they're more, reliant on their peers for a lot of that, they'll come to you with stuff, but as teenagers, they don't want to share everything with mom and dad. That's normal. But I think being an open door for them when things do show up, they know that at least you're a sounding board for them to help them navigate. And I think in terms of content online, it is unfortunate because I think if they're seeing things online that's not reality, it really does put a spin on things that helps them. They're basically losing, connection with the real world, which is a dangerous place, I think, for our youth to be going. And so I think just trying to role model and be a touchstone for your kids as they're navigating these things that we didn't have. This wasn't
Yeah.
part of our upbringing. And so this is really a new generational issue that we are just learning more about. And so I think, having good dialogue with your kids, and setting healthy boundaries and trying to keep a pulse on the content that they're engaging with to the best of your ability will help you help them as they grow.
Well, it's going to get worse because with AI, I should say, coming about, and it's coming about very, very fast. We've seen the chat bots where the kids can write papers through these chat bots. And not even just that, AI in general is going to make things in our country and in the world in general even worse. And these issues are going to continue to come up. And again, they're not going to get better for people that are parents. They're going to get worse because they're very much complex. And as you stated, Holly, issues that we never dealt with growing up. So they're very hard for us to explain and even engage with our kids about because we don't really have the answer. We don't even know how to approach these new issues that are coming about fast and furious.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's uncharted territory. And so,
Yeah.
I think we just have to navigate with, as keep a pulse on what's happening to the best of your ability. And, it's a challenging situation for sure. And hopefully one that we can navigate successfully to help, the mental health of our children, to help us all have healthier boundaries with, technology and it does benefit our life. Technology does have a beneficial role in our lives, but you have to find the balance and you have to be intentional with what you're interacting with online.
Let's hit up these last questions. It's another audience question. Like I said, we did get a lot of audience questions, which I was surprised on because we honestly don't do this topic very much, but apparently the people have heard about you or they did want to talk about these issues. Again, this is a huge part of our society, growing up young kids. So apparently people did want to hear this topic. So they did, again, put a lot of these audience questions out. So I'm going to shoot these right at you. So let's talk about this, for a person like you and has 4 kids, I should say. For people listening that have more than one child, how do they make sure they don't favor one child over another? Because that can kind of get dicey.
I love that question. Well, I think, each one of your children, if you have multiple children, what we've learned are they're so different. You have, you think your kids would be real similar, coming from the same parents, but each one of your children will be distinctly themselves. And so it is important to get to know them and honor them for who they are. And one thing that we have done, and we still continue to do it, but we started when they were young, is we would make time to take, like when they were in preschool, we would take one and keep them home so they would have one-on-one time, because we started with twins and we had one 12 months later. So it was like having triplets. And so we wanted to really have that time where they each felt like they were being cared for on a one-on-one basis, because you also get to know your kids at a deeper level, because the dynamic shifts, when all of your kids are together versus just that one-on-one time, it really, there's a difference. And anyone who has multiple kids who have done this will know what I'm speaking to, but it's important to maybe carve out some special time to get to know your kids on a one-on-one, and not always just all together, if that makes sense.
While we're rounding third and headed for home with this last question, what do you hope readers and, listeners and the viewers of this podcast, but especially the readers of the book, do get when they finish reading your book?
I really want them to just find more. The reason I wrote this book was for parents to find more intentionality, more consciousness, more joy, and more wellness as a parent, or as a grandparent. I've had grandparents read this and say they absolutely loved it and connected with it. And I put a lot of reflection questions in this book so that it's not just simply reading a book, but it's also turning the mirror around and looking at, like, how does this apply to me in my life? Because for me, that's where my mission and that's where my focus really lies right now, is bringing more wellness, more kindness, more joy to the planet. And it starts with, helping this next generation find that and discover those things for themselves so that we can keep improving as human beings.
All right. So, Holly, how can people follow you on social media? I know they can get the book at Amazon, as we stated, or Barnes and Nobles, wherever books are sold in general. But if people want to follow you on social media, obviously, where can they follow you? Do you have all the social media sites, or?
Yeah, I hadn't been on social for years, and with writing this book, I did get back on this past year, and so it's been a fun way to interact with folks. But I am on Instagram and Facebook, and you can find those links on my website at liveyourglow.live. It's at the bottom of the homepage, to easily connect.
Holly Swenson, she is the author of Stop, Drop, Grow, and Glow: Forming Deeper and More Joyful Connections with Yourself and Your Children. Again, liveyourglow.live, liveyourglow.live for more about Holly. You can get the book again on Amazon or Barnes and Nobles or any bookstore in general. Just ask for it. But we do hope to have you on again, Holly. And thank you so much for putting up with my stumbling and fumbling with your title. But I do hope people read the book, because we've had a very good interview here, and I hope to have you on again.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to visit with you today.